In November of 2016, Sony launched the PlayStation 4 Pro, the first truly 4K console. While the games that supported it looked stunning, there were barely any games that did support it. And since the technology was so new, some of the games that did support it actually looked worse because they didn't know how to utilize the hardware. Now, 2 years later, is it still worth getting? Was it ever worth getting? And how does it stack up to the newer, more powerful Xbox One X? You might notice that this video is not in 4K. I have the capability of shooting in 4K. I have the capability of editing in 4K, albeit very slowly, but I do not have the capability of capturing in 4K, at least not yet. All of the 4K capture cards available on the market today wouldn't work with either of my computers. I could have easily just ripped footage from other places and credited them, but this video isn't about graphical comparisons. I highly recommend Digital Foundry if you want that. They are very thorough, and actually I got a lot of my information for this video from them. This video is more about real-world application, your hard-earned dollars, and whether or not all this technical mumbo-jumbo should even matter to you. The PS4 Pro is currently going for $399. The baseline PS4 Slim varies wildly in price. It seems to hover around $300, but I've seen it for as low as $250 and right now on Amazon as high as $340. Around Black Friday, I'm sure you'll have no problem finding one for $250, and maybe it'll even come with a game or two. For comparison, the Xbox One S goes for about the same as the PS4 Slim. On Amazon right now, you can get it for slightly less, but the Xbox One X is $500, a whopping $100 more than the PS4 Pro. Really, the only difference between the PS4 Pro and the other models is the 4K resolution in some games, the higher frame rate in some games, and the steadier frame rate in a lot of games. The PlayStation 4 Pro also supports HDR, or high dynamic range, which is supposed to give you better detail in the lighter or darker areas of the image. I hate HDR because the standard is all messed up. Cheaper monitors like my BenQ over here will claim HDR support, but enabling HDR will show little or sometimes no improvements whatsoever. So no matter what console you have, completely disregard HDR if you have a monitor or a TV that is less than $1,000. HDR is also a little bit of a bait and switch. HDMI 2.0 cannot support both HDR and a full 4K signal, so what it does is it subsamples the colors. It copies the pixels in every other vertical line, essentially crushing the resolution vertically. Basically, you're sacrificing resolution for a deeper dynamic range. Granted, on a nice TV, that higher dynamic range might be worth the slight dip in resolution. But if your TV or monitor has crappy HDR, or if you don't notice much of a difference in dynamic range, it's probably just best to leave HDR off. Otherwise, your image will be subsampled for no reason.
See, when HDR is on, RGB is supposed to turn off.
Right.
You're not supposed to be able to click RGB.
This isn't a limitation of the PS4 Pro necessarily, so don't take it out on Sony. This is a limitation of the HDMI 2.0 spec, so the Xbox One X actually does this too. Also similar to the Xbox One X, not every game is 4K compatible or HDR compatible. The games that take the most advantage of this advanced hardware are exclusives. The multi-platform games are a little bit underwhelming. The enhancements are very subtle, but some exclusives, like for example, Horizon Zero Dawn, show a lot of improvement. Granted, these games already looked great on the base model PS4, but that extra power, when used right, can give you better lighting, more detailed environments, more objects on screen at once, higher or more stable frame rates, etc. It becomes more of a challenge for developers when trying to maximize graphical fidelity across all platforms. It's much easier to focus on one, or two if you include the baseline model. That being said, the Xbox One X is the more powerful console. Like, much more powerful. When it comes to multi-platform games, they almost always perform better on the Xbox One X, sometimes experiencing slight frame drops on the PS4 Pro, or in extreme cases, a lower resolution. The Xbox One X currently has 213 enhanced titles at the time of this recording. The PS4 Pro only has 175 enhanced titles, even though it came out a whole year prior to the Xbox One X. Enhanced doesn't necessarily mean 4K, 60 frames per second, or HDR. It just means that it utilizes the hardware in some way to make the game perform better. A lot of these games on the Xbox list are Xbox 360 games. Some even run at full 4K, which is absurd. Xbox does win out on backwards compatibility, hands down. And while Sony's enhanced titles list might be smaller, they do have a lot more exclusive AAA games, and they're very highly reviewed. If the console wars were based solely on exclusives alone, well, Nintendo would win, but Sony would be right up there with them. Exclusives are a big thing to consider when choosing a console, but unfortunately, they aren't the only thing to consider. I still think the Xbox has the best controller design, and the Xbox One X does include a 4K Blu-ray drive. The PS4 Pro, while totally capable of 4K video, does not have a 4K Blu-ray drive. So no 4K movies for you. Its drive is also loud as hell. Some say the fans on the original model PS4 get really loud, but my launch PS4 runs absolutely fine. It isn't loud at all. And this PS4 Pro isn't loud most of the time, only when using the disk drive to do something like install a game. One neat little feature the PS4 Pro has buried deep in its settings is a little thing called boost mode. When checked, this setting boosts the clock speed of the GPU to enhance the frame rate of older PS4 games that might not have been updated to utilize the superior hardware of the PS4 Pro. So even if the game that you're playing isn't on that list of enhanced titles for the PS4 Pro, you can make it an enhanced title by checking off that boost mode. The PS4 Pro was also created to enhance the performance of the PlayStation VR. With the advanced hardware, it can feed a significantly higher resolution signal to the headset, which doesn't look all that impressive on the preview screen, but looks significantly better in the headset. Speaking of that preview screen, the launch PlayStation VR processing unit, that little box that you use to loop your HDMI through and plug your headset into, only has HDMI 1.4 ports. This means that it's only capable of outputting 4K at 30 frames per second, and it's not capable of HDR at all. If you want to run HDR or a video above 30 frames per second of 4K, you need to unplug your PS4 from the PSVR. Luckily, Sony fixed this in the newer versions of the PlayStation VR, but us early adopters are out of luck. So, right now, is it worth getting a PS4 Pro? Well, there are a lot of great games that utilize the hardware. God of War and Spider-Man look amazing on every PS4 model, but get that slight edge on the Pro. Red Dead Redemption also looks stunning on whatever you play it on. According to Digital Foundry, it looks better on the baseline PS4 than it does on the Xbox One S. But it performs better on the Xbox One X than it does on the PS4 Pro. And again, the X and the Pro comparison is true for most multi-platform games. In Red Dead, it's doing that sort of weird subsampling on PS4 Pro, similar to the way I explained how HDR worked. That's how it's able to do 4K on the inferior hardware. It's sort of cheating. If the question is, should you upgrade your PS4 to the PS4 Pro, the answer is 100% without a doubt, absolutely not. The performance difference in both of these iterative consoles is so minute that it's not worth shelling out that extra $400 to $500. If you want the best performing console to wow all of your friends and to play all of the big budget AAA games at their best, then the Xbox One X is for you. But if you don't have a PS4 at all and you want one for their top tier exclusives, then the PS4 Pro isn't a bad bet. It's not that much more expensive than the baseline Slim model, and lately Sony has been killing it with these limited edition models. The Spider-Man PS4 Pro is one of the best looking current gen consoles to date. So was the 500 million bundle. When a new exclusive game comes out, chances are there will be a PS4 Pro limited edition, or at least a game bundle. But you'll just have to be quick to snag it though, because even the Spider-Man one that just came out is already sold out in stores and marked up on eBay. The PS4 also has a fantastic back catalog of exclusive games like Uncharted 4, The Last of Us Remastered, Ratchet & Clank. It for sure has the better exclusive library than Xbox, but that might change now that Microsoft purchased 6 or 7 new studios just this year. But hey, if the future is a deterrent to you, then you might want to consider that both Microsoft and Sony are already gearing up for the next generation. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw completely new hardware in late 2019. It feels like it's too soon for something like that to happen, but this is the unfortunate time that we live in now where these iterative consoles muck up the timeline. I think having and playing a console like this for a whole year before it becomes obsolete would still get you your money's worth, but I know that some people get really bad buyer's remorse. I wouldn't let that deter you from enjoying some great games as soon as possible, but it is something to think about. Long story short, yes, the PS4 Pro is worth it if you don't already have a PlayStation. I'd even recommend it over the original baseline Slim model, which is more than I said for the Xbox One X versus the S. But I still think that these 4K iterative consoles are fucking stupid. So what do you guys think about the PlayStation 4 Pro? Is it something that you've considered getting? Is it something that you have gotten? How do you think it stacks up to the Xbox One S or X? And what do you think the fanboys are going to complain about in the comments of this video? I know that I can make everybody happy, so I don't strive to make everybody happy. I strive to make everybody mad at me. Anyway, leave it in the comments below, at me on Twitter, all this other social media garbage. We got new videos and live streams all of the time. Our schedule is in a pinned tweet over on our Twitter. Head on over to twitch.tv/wolfden where I've been playing Pokemon Heart Gold, but today, the day this video's out, I'm gonna play some Red Dead. Because god damn it, I really wanna play Red Dead. And hey, if you support us here on YouTube or over there on twitch.tv/wolfden, you link that account to your Discord account, you can get videos like this early. And you can get game time on our multiplayer streams like we did. We just played Mario Kart together. You could also support us by purchasing something from our own self-made apparel line. But of course, the most important thing that you can do is free. You just subscribe or share this video with a friend who is thinking about maybe getting one of these things on Black Friday. Maybe he's deciding what other console to get. Maybe he's already got a Switch and needs more consoles. Maybe he wants to play stuff like Red Dead or Call of Duty or God forbid Fortnite. He doesn't know what to get. Send him over here. Thank you guys very much. Have yourselves a very good